After my stepmom falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings with fabricated evidence, my dad labeled me a desperate lowlife and threw me out of the house. 8 years later, he contacted me, having finally seen my stepmom's true nature, and asked me to fulfill my duty as his daughter. I couldn't help but laugh in his face. Hey, so my estranged father reached out to me recently, and I need to know if I did the right thing or not since a lot of people have been giving me flack for how I reacted. For context, he and I have not been on speaking terms for the last 8 years. I was 21 back when he kicked me out and had just graduated college, so I was living with my family for a couple of months before I started working and saved enough money to move out. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and when I turned 17, my dad started dating my stepmom, Becca. My stepmother had also been married before, but unfortunately, her husband had passed away 6 years before she started dating my father. She also had a daughter from her previous relationship, my stepsister Alexa, who was 4 years younger than me. The first time that I met Becca and Alexa, I sort of got a really weird vibe from them, like they were not happy to meet me. But I thought that maybe they were just shy and didn't think much of it. However, the more time I spent with them, the less I thought they liked me. After 1 year of dating, Becca and Alexa moved in with us, but that was the year that I moved out for college, so I didn't spend much time with them at home. I would only get to see my family when I would come back home for the holidays, and every time that I would come back, they would always act very weird around me. They got married when I was in my 2nd year, and even then, they didn't seem to like me. I don't exactly know how to put it into words, but it was like they did not appreciate me being around and seemed much happier when it was just them and my father. After graduation, when I moved back in with the intention of staying at home so I could save some money before permanently moving out, I decided to talk to my father about this because I didn't want to live in a house where I felt unwelcome all the time. When I discussed it with him, though, he told me that I was just imagining it and that Becca and Alexa loved me. So, I decided to believe what he was saying and moved back in. But within a couple of weeks, he had been proven wrong. They definitely did not love me, and if anything, they actually hated having me around. Becca was constantly cold to me and rarely ever even acknowledged my existence, and Alexa seemed to have it in for me and was constantly trying to get on my nerves and pick fights with me. I brought it up with my dad a couple of times, but because their behavior around him was very different, he thought that I was just reading too much into the situation and that they were probably just getting used to having me around. This went on for a couple of months, and no matter how much I tried to avoid them, they just kept trying to make life difficult for me. After a while, I even stopped complaining to my father about it because there was no point. All I wanted was just to save enough money to be able to move out, but I was kicked out of my home quite unceremoniously because Becca and Alexa framed me for stealing her college savings. One day, I had left the house around noon to go house hunting with a couple of my friends because Becca and Alexa were driving me crazy, and I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. I came back home in the evening, and my dad was already there. He looked extremely disappointed and told me to pack my stuff and leave as soon as I entered the house. I had no idea what was going on, and I was caught off guard. When I asked him what was going on, he told me that he had never expected me to turn out to be such a desperate lowlife and he had never thought that I would stoop to such levels just for money. I had no idea what he was talking about, and I had tears in my eyes because the things he was saying were really harsh. But instead of trying to talk to me, he told me that he had no time for my act and he just wanted me to leave now. Then Becca entered the room and started shrieking at me for ruining Alexa's future and claimed that I had done all of this because I couldn't stand the fact that my father had finally moved on. While she was screaming at me about what I had supposedly done, I was able to piece together the story. Apparently, they were accusing me of stealing money from them from a card that they had lent me for emergencies, and I had instead used that for luxury purchases. Becca claimed that I had apparently come to her a few weeks ago and said that I was running short on money, so she had made me an add-on on the account where she saved money for Alexa. But I had almost drained the account entirely, and now there was no money left for Alexa to go to college. Apparently, I had lied about what I needed the money for and had bought several new bags, shoes, and clothes from really expensive brands with the money that she had put aside for her daughter. I was appalled because none of this had happened and she was lying through her teeth. So, I told her to show me the proof of all of this, and my dad said that there was no need for that because apparently they had gone through my room a couple of hours ago, and they had already found everything they needed to confirm her story. He said that he had found all the items that had been purchased just on that card stashed away under my bed secretly. Of course, when I told my father that she had never even added me on the card because if she had, I would have known, he told me that she had removed me after she received the phone call from the bank that morning itself. It had taken a few hours, but now it was done. When I told him to call the bank authorities to confirm this, he told me that he did not need any more proof to know that his daughter was a disgusting person and a thief. No matter how hard I tried to convince him that Becca was lying, he did not believe me, and eventually, I had to leave. After that day, I did not have any contact with my father. He had shown me where his priorities were, and after the way I had been insulted, I never wanted to reach out to him again. I spent a couple of days with a friend before moving into my first apartment, and I struggled with money for a couple of months, but after that, I was able to make it on my own. I lead a pretty nice life now, and I'm even planning on buying my own house in a couple of months. For 8 years, I have had absolutely no contact with my father and have avoided every family event on my father's side like the plague because I just never wanted to see him. My mother and I have kept in touch, and she had also cut off my father around the same time that I did because of the way he had behaved with me. But right now, she's kind of taking his side, which is why I'm confused. Anyway, a couple of days ago, my dad showed up at my house, and I was very curious to know what he had to say. So, I opened the door to speak to him, and he told me that he had got the address from my mother. He told me that he was here to apologize to me for everything because only recently did he find out that my stepmom had made up the entire thing because she wanted somebody to cover Alexa's college fund. For years, she had been using him for his money, and he had no idea because he thought he was just supporting his family. But after what he had just found out from his in-laws, he wanted me to forgive him and give him a chance. Apparently, Becca had had a fight with her parents a couple of months ago, and they had recently reached out to my father to let him know the truth about the incident over which he had kicked me out. So basically, just as I had suspected, she had bought all those things for herself and her daughter, but she instead placed them in my room to frame me and make it seem like I was hiding things. For good measure, she had even had her parents call her pretending to be bank employees and convince my dad that she had in fact made me an add-on on the card. The real reason she had done all of this was because she was the one who had drained the college fund that her deceased husband had left for Alexa with her extravagant lifestyle.